Hello everyone, and welcome to 7 reasons why F1 2012 was the best ever. Now, you'll be seeing some F1 2012 gameplay footage in the background, but actually a lot of these reasons are based on the real season, which of course do transfer over to the game anyway. And also a little disclaimer, F1 2012 was my first league racing season, and I did win 2 titles on it, so there's probably a little bit of nostalgia there, a little bit of a happy memories looking back. But anyway then, let's get into it. You see, we're on the Valencia street circuit, and that's actually why this video came about. I tweeted out that actually, am I the only one to miss Valencia? But apparently I wasn't the only one. So yeah, I sort of had this idea to jump on the 2012 game. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, 2012 was an awesome season. It was awesome to drive on the game, and it was awesome to watch. So I thought I'd have a little brainstorm and think of the best reasons why that was. Now the first one, which you can see in the bottom right hand corner, is that DRS was active at all times. Now basically I'm going to group these 7 things into 2 different categories, drivers and cars. That one's a driver one because it meant that the drivers are more involved. The current formula of Formula 1 is very much, it's sort of sanitized a bit, isn't it? Because the teams have got so much control, there's so many sensors, there's so much data, that they basically tell the drivers a lot of what to do. But I feel like in 2012, as much as there was still some of that, I feel like there was a good balance there of it actually being really quite raw. And one of those things is that the drivers could use DRS at any point in practice and qualifying. So qualifying laps were harder. They were trying to open the DRS as early as possible and risk it through high-speed corners, having the rear wing open and lower downforce just to eke out a bit more lap time. So the drivers are heroes a bit more, whereas DRS now is just a push to pass button, really, isn't it? It's just in certain zones that have been pre-approved for safety and all this sort of thing. So a little bit more sanitized, if you like. Another big reason why the drivers were more the heroes back then is KERS. You can see me in the bottom right corner, just using the last of my KERS battery. You got, I think it was 7 seconds of 150 horsepower, was it? Something like that. And that was completely down to the driver. 7 seconds per lap where they could use it whenever they wanted. So it became really, really tactical. So, you know, all the on-screen displays would have the KERS meter, so you'd see exactly how much each driver's got. And if you thought you were faster than the car ahead, you wouldn't use any KERS in the beginning, but you try and force your rival to use some KERS. You see me running hugely deep. This is one of my first laps on the game since I raced it. What was that now? 7 years ago. Wow. But yes, it was really tactical, so the drivers wouldn't use it so much at the beginning of the lap if they thought they were going to better, but try and force their rival to use it. Then come the end of the lap, they'd have potentially all of their KERS, and their rival would have none, and they'd hopefully be able to fly by. So it was so tactical, and obviously the vice versa. If you run a bit wide, it forces you to use a bit of KERS. Oh, I've made a mistake, so I'm going to make up for it by using a bit of KERS. And then once you do that, of course, then you compromise the rest of your lap. So I think it just spiced it up a bit. I really liked manual KERS, and I think F1 would benefit from bringing something like that back in. So perhaps, you know, for 30 seconds of the whole race or 5 seconds a lap, they get to use an extra 100 horsepower or something from a button from the existing ERS system. Something like that would be cool. But anyway, this is the race start, as you can see. And actually, just a quick note, this isn't one of my points, but just a quick note on the game. I was quite surprised how good the AI were. I thought they were going to be really slow, and I certainly was quicker than them, despite my severe lack of practice. But the defender there, they are using all of the track, and they are quite slow for the first couple of corners, but I would have to be really aggressive and diving up the inside to be going up the inside of them, which is what I do here. They brake very early, do leave a bit too much room there, but actually the AI were better than what I recalled. I thought they were going to be really rubbish, other than being a bit slow. Anyway, that was a side point. And of course, yes, one more thing about the drivers. My third point is that the quality of the field was excellent. There was 13 world titles between the drivers. There was 24 of them as well. 13 world titles. Granted, 7 of those did belong to one man, of course, Michael Schumacher. Who else? But yeah, I mean, the quality of the field was just excellent. It really was. We had some really, really top guys in there. It's obviously great to see Schumacher there. So many world champions, and they were all right up there. We had Alonso, we had Vettel, we had Button, we had Hamilton, we had Schumacher, we had Rosberg, who became great. Whether he was great then, I don't know, but he was certainly very good just before he retired. And Webber, and he was obviously pretty good as well. He was ran Vettel very, very close. If you rate Vettel highly, you've got to rate Webber as well, because it wasn't always a walkover. Webber did a good job against him. Anyway then, so that's my 3 points on why it was better from a driver's point of view, or why it was better because of the drivers. Mainly just because the drivers just had more of an impact, didn't they? There's actually Nico Hülkenberg has a bad excess. We're going to fly around us outside here, and we make that move stick just about. And that was a pretty nice move, but we have used all of our KERS, just playing around with the fuel mixture as well. And again, just another little side note on the game. I quite like how raw this game is. It really is just simple and basic, and I quite like it. Even the menus, I like it all. But again, that might be nostalgia at my point. Anyway, back to my 7 points. So now we'll move on to my second sort of category of points, which is the cars. Now, obviously the cars are quite a lot different, and I'm sure you guys will already know quite a lot of the differences, but I will start with the fact that they are much lighter. I think the cars, even though in 2012 there was no refueling, so it meant that the car started pretty heavy as well. I think there's something like, I should have looked this up beforehand, but 150, 200 kilos lighter. Something silly. It's a lot of weight. Maybe it's only 100 kilos, but it's an awful lot of weight, and it makes a huge difference. When they were sort of 700 or so kilos, and now I think they're 850-ish now, so it'll be about 150 kilos at my guesstimate. Maldonado, everyone misses Maldonado, of course, having a little bit of battle with him there, going up to rich fuel and using quite a lot of my KERS to try and get past him. But anyway, yeah, so much lighter, it just meant they were much more raw racing machines. They were lighter, so they were harder to control, and they really had to get wrestled around the track more, and of course it meant they were quicker as well, particularly in the slower speed corners, and I think it just made them harder to drive in general, really, just because they were so light. And I think that's something that F1 really, really does need to get back. I will next move on to the engine, which is my 5th point. And of course they were V8 engines, petrol engines, and to be honest with you, I like the current engines. It's probably a controversial point, most people won't agree, but I do quite like them. I always have done. I think they're what F1 needs. They're really technical. I like the noise. I think it's a really technical noise. F1 should be at the very forefront of technology. That's what it is at its core. I think is the very best cars, and the very best technology is hybrid at the minute. It's energy recovery. It's turbo. You know, you can't go back to a non-turbo car with no hybrid and stuff when, you know, you get in your car just to drive down the shops and it's got a lot more technology. That doesn't make sense to me. But there was a spectacle of V8. I saw, my first race was, I think it was 2008 or 2007, somewhere around there. So they were still V8s. I never saw the V10s or V12s in person. But I tell you what, that noise, when I very first arrived to the track, of a V8, and I wasn't even close to the track yet, I was a few hundred meters away, but a V8 F1 car screaming, and there is no other word for it. And honestly, if you never saw it in person, I advise you to go down to a demo run somewhere and just experience it, because it is an experience. And that is a big thing that I think we've been robbed of with F1. It's just that it's mainly just the volume. I think if the current engines just revved a bit higher, would be okay, but it really was like a wow moment. Like, this is something special. That is hurting my ears. That is a real scream. That's like nothing I've ever heard before. And like I said, it genuinely stuck with me. And I do think that's missing a little bit. I think that the spectacle at track, on TV there wasn't a huge difference. Just a slight pitch difference really is the only real difference. And on TV I actually prefer the modern cars because it's more of a technological noise, as I mentioned before. But in person, any sort of petrol naturally aspirated V car just sounded just incredible. So I do think we are missing a little bit with that, I have to say. Moving on then to my 6th point, and that is that the field was much closer, and that just shows in this race. You saw hopefully in qualifying, and you will see at the end of the race how close the field was. And it really, in the 2012 season, the first 7 laps of the the first 7 races rather of the season were won by 7 different drivers, which, when you consider that the current formula, that's completely, you can't even imagine that in the current state of F1. It's just dominated by the top teams, by the top drivers, and there isn't a lot of variety. But back then, its first 7 races won by 7 different drivers. Maldonado won a race. It was in a Williams, and also where's Williams gone? The field spread was so much closer, and I think that was probably just because the cars were a little bit simpler. So I have a few issues there with the handling model of this game, and I think certainly the handling model has improved with the more recent games. I do like, again, another side point on the game, I do like the handling model of this series. I mean, this era, F1 2013 was my favourite, just because you could just chuck it around. This game's not great because the oversteer is a bit dodgy. You just have to slam on the brakes to stop it, whereas F1 2013 you could actually catch oversteer, and they got the balance right, and you could really chuck the cars around in F1 2013. You pushed, it was qualifying laps, lap after lap, which is probably potentially should have been one of my points, but never mind. And that was excellent, and I think, as much as I do like the current handling of the game, it's a little bit more technical, isn't it? It's a little bit harder, and it's just, I think, not quite as fun just because you can't chuck around so much. But anyway, that's another side point for you. Finally then, my 7th point was that quite simply, there was more cars. There was 24 cars rather than the 20 that there is now. And of course, it went down to 18 at one point until Haas joined. But 24 cars, that's always going to be better. Granted, there was 3 very slow cars, HRT, Marussia, and Lotus, or whatever you want to call them, Caterham, or Virgin, or... yeah, there was a few different guises of the back teams, wasn't there? But they obviously were not quick. They were actually quite slow and, you know, got in the way a little bit. But what do we have now? We have the whole field lapping... we have the front cars lapping pretty much the whole field. So, actually, they weren't that bad compared to how they are now. And it's always better to have more cars. It means there's more drivers. It means there's more opportunities for the guys coming up for F2. And more cars is always better. There's just more going on. There's, you know, in practice sessions, there's more cars to watch on track. It's just everything about it. More cars is obviously better up to a point, I have to admit. So that was a better one. But anyway, that's my 7 points. Let me know what you think of my points. And of course, let me know down in the comments if you think I missed anything. If there was something you really loved about the F1 2012 season. If something you hated about it. Also include the game. If there was something you loved about the game, hated about the game. Do let me know. But anyway then, we are going to stick with this race till the end. We've got Michael Schumacher, the legend, up ahead of us. Couldn't script that if I tried, and I genuinely didn't script this. But Michael Schumacher, going to be battling with him till the end, I think, using the last of our KERS here, going up to rich fuel mixture, getting nice, a lot of slipstream. You can see the camera shake when you're getting slipstream on F1 2012. That was always a giveaway as to when you're getting the benefit of slipstream, as I actually almost hit Massa there, going a little bit deep. Schumacher's going to dive back at the inside of me, very aggressive, typical Schumacher style, but we managed to make the move stick. 1.1 seconds, oh, dearie me, and there's that auto correct there when you get on the brakes. As some of you guys who haven't played the older games won't know, but if you were sliding, if you jammed on the brakes, it would just automatically correct you the right direction. It was a bit of a weird thing with the handling of this game. But anyway, we do unfortunately lose out to Michael Schumacher in the end, as just showing my lack of practice. So we come to the line now to take home P9 as Jenson Button at the Valencia circuit. I personally really miss this track. I really enjoy playing this game and this track. It was a bit of a nostalgia trip for me, as I said. I potentially might do some more of these videos if you guys like it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. As I said, do let me know down in the comments if I've missed anything. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and I thank you for watching. Bye-bye.